Hello, hello, hello. It's time for your favorite type of video and my least favorite. It's time for preview and predictions, and it's the US Open quarterfinals. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that now before we get going. Quarterfinals is the worst round to predict because there's so many matches going on. I haven't been able to watch every player in depth ahead of the match, so I don't have that kind of instinct a lot of the time on who's going to come through. And with the time zones and everything I've been working with, I haven't even had a lot of time to look through statistics, etc. But I'm going to use my base knowledge and the knowledge of what I've seen so far and see what we can do. And if it goes horrendously wrong, it's 2020 and that's my excuse. So we're going to go starting with the matches coming up today and the matches coming up on the following day. I'm not sure what the schedule is going to be for tomorrow, so I'm just going to roll with it and alternate between women's matches and men's matches, and we'll see how we go. So we're going to start with the first match scheduled for today. That will be Jennifer Brady up against Yulia Putintseva. Brady, the number 28 seed, and Putintseva, the number 23 seed. One of them is going to be a semi-finalist. I think quite a few people are surprised by that. Not really at all on my part. It's the WTA at the end of the day. It's very open, and with the absence of certain top players here as well, it was always going to be a more open field. And Brady's been in fantastic form coming into this. She won the first week back in Lexington, and she carried that form into Cincy. That ain't really Cincy. And Putintseva, she's gone deep at slams before, not yet made a semi, but she has been present in a couple of quarterfinals. And also got a really big win over Naomi Osaka at Wimbledon last year on grass courts, and we've got a fast court here. So, interesting matchup. Let's have a quick look at what they've done so far. Because we've got so many matches to get through, I think what we're going to do is try and keep each one to about 5 minutes. I'm not very good at that, so we'll see how it goes. Putintseva, let's kick off with her. She has dropped 2 sets in her third round and fourth round matches respectively. Those sets were dropped, came through easily in round 1 over Robin Montgomery and then over Vera Lapko as well. She only dropped a handful of games in each match, and then she had a little bit of trouble against Alexandra Sasnovich, who she beat in 3 sets, coming back from a set down, and Petra Martic, who is a really tough opponent to play. She strikes a very fluid ball and gets a lot of balls back in play. So Putintseva came through that one most recently, 6-3, 2-6, 6-4, courtesy of some absences. Martic was the number 8 seed. Moving across to Brady, she's beaten a couple of seeds, I think, herself, in rounds 3 and 4. She seeded 28, so straight sets wins over Anna Blinkova and Cici Bellis to kick off. She thrashed Bellis, and Bellis is really talented, plays with a lot of firepower, got some big results here. When she was really young, like 15, she knocked off Dominika Cibulkova in the first round. I think that's going back to 2015 now, time flies. But then a straight sets win over Caroline Garcia 6-3, 6-3. Garcia had taken out Pliskova, who's the top seed, and 6-1, 6-4 over Angelique Kerber, the number 17 seed, and of course a former champion here. So Brady is into the quarterfinals, having dropped collectively 19 games across 4 matches. So that's pretty imperious form. However, she's yet to ever beat Yulia Putintseva. They faced off twice, I believe. Yeah, getting confirmation here. Twice they faced off, and Putintseva's come out on top both times. Both meetings were in 2018, and straight sets wins for Putintseva on both occasions. First was on clay at Roland Garros, 6-4, 6-3 to Putintseva, and then Washington, D.C. last year, so 2 years ago. American hard courts, 7-5, 6-2 for Putintseva. So what do we say about this? Brady's playing really solid. She plays with a lot of topspin and rallies with quite a hard ball, actually, considering all the topspin that she's putting on it. I think Kerber was probably a good preparation for this match because Kerber is a player that will get a lot of balls back, which is what Putintseva is going to do. She also probably hits a little bit harder than Putintseva as well. I think Putintseva, there was a stat a while back, and she's the player that rallies with most clearance over the net because she herself plays with so much topspin. She's also got a little bit of a slower rally ball than Brady, so that will probably be something that Brady tries to get on top of. Both of them are very great with the drop shot. Putintseva, what is so lethal about her is the way that she's able to mix things up. And that's why she was able to give Naomi Osaka so much trouble in recent times. I think it was twice, actually, that she beat Osaka in straights last year. Just able to move her around and take her off balance. And the likes of Osaka are lethal when they're in position. So the key is to move them around and tire them out and stretch them out. So that's something that Putintseva can really do to trouble Brady, but I feel like Brady's going to try and pack the first punch, try and get on top of things. The big question for her is how she's going to finish the points off. How is she going to get through the wall that Putintseva can become? And Putintseva, she's just going to look to try and frustrate Brady, but Brady hasn't looked too frustrated so far from the limited amount that I've seen of her. A part of me really wants to predict Putintseva to win this. I actually love Yulia Putintseva. I love how she winds everyone up with her attitude and her game. I love how she thrives off that and completely owns it. I would love to see her win this whole thing. But based on the fact that I haven't watched much of these two, and the fact that Brady's in really good form and has a slightly more impressive list of victims thus far, I would say, than Putintseva, I think I have to give Brady the benefit of the doubt here. But I'm going to say that Putintseva pushes her more than anyone so far, and I still wouldn't be surprised to see Putintseva come through, but I've got to make a prediction here, and I think that I have to give Brady the benefit of the doubt based on her form, so I'm going to say Jennifer Brady to win this one in 3 sets. And we move swiftly on. I had thought about that one a little bit. We move on to a men's match between Alexander Zverev, I nearly said Alex de Minaur, 2 Alexes in the draw, and Borna Coric, who is the number 27 seed. This is a fascinating matchup to me because these two ahead of the likes of Stefanos Tsitsipas and even Dominic Thiem, who broke through a bit later, these were the 2 names that people looked at to be the flag bearers of men's tennis after the big 3 had retired. These 2 were picking up great results from the age of 17, 18, and then Coric kind of stalled a bit where Zverev took strides. And I think that was quite surprising to a lot of people because Coric got his big results first. He was beating Nadal when he was 17, Murray when he was 17, 18, and Zverev took just a little bit more time to kind of burst onto the scene. I pride myself in always having said that Zverev would go the furthest of the 2. I thought he'd be the one to win more slams, just because in the early days, Coric had a really complete game, but lacked the finishing shot, and I think that Zverev had a little bit more of a lethal edge. That was my thinking. But Coric has really been working hard, I think, over the period of months that tennis has been set to the side, and I think that's really showing itself in New York. I was quite impressed by what I've seen from him so far, the little bits that I have seen, admittedly. Let's go then. Let's start with Zverev, the number 5 seed. A lot of eyes on him now, obviously, with the absence of Djokovic. Zverev kicked off really impressively. He is one for getting a really tough opening round. I felt sorry for him over the years because he's often been seeded and yet he'll end up with the kind of out of form big name players or players that are kind of just missed out of a seeding and really have the game to trouble him. So he got Kevin Anderson, who reached the final in 2017 and lost to Nadal. And that's a difficult opponent to come up against here because Anderson obviously is a big server, likes to move in, likes a fast pace, and we all know that the pace has sped up a bit here in New York, but Zverev got that one in 4 sets, 7-6, 5-7, 6-3, 7-5. He actually went to 4 sets in his next 2 matches as well against Nakashima and Adrian Mannarino, the number 32 seed, a clash that I find quite interesting coming into this one against Coric, because Mannarino is a player that can get a lot of balls back and really be frustrating in that regard and can also mix it up quite a bit as well. Zverev lost the first set there in a tiebreak, so great mentality from him to come back and win the next 3, 6-4, 6-2, 6-2. And then Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Wow, these names, guys, not for when I'm tired. 6-2, 6-2, 6-1 for Mr. Zverev. So he moves in, having just picked up his first straight sets win and having done it convincingly. Moving over to Coric, who took out Stefanos Tsitsipas, the number 4 seed, in the third round. That was in 5 sets. Prior to that, he'd beaten Pablo Andujar in the first round. That's not an easiest opener, you know. Andujar, he's experienced, but I think Coric using the pace a little bit there to get through in straights. Juan Londero gave him the runaround, 5 sets in the second round before that Tsitsipas match, where Tsitsipas held, I think, 6 match points across the 4th and 5th sets, wasn't able to convert and actually lost, I think, all of those points on unforced errors. So that was a match that Tsitsipas really had on his racket, but Coric was still able to go toe-to-toe and have the mentality to take hold of the opportunities when they come. And I've said a million times that at this level, mentality is what really matters. And across best of 5 sets as well, you need your endurance and you need your mentality. And that's 2 things that Coric has had in his pocket over the week and a half so far. Then a more straightforward win over Jordan Thompson, 7-5, 6-1, 6-3, and really frustrated Thompson because Thompson just didn't really know how to finish him off, was a little bit erratic himself. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed with his performance there, but it had been a great run for Thompson, first, 4th rounds. Coric getting the win there. So what do we say about this? Let's first look at the head-to-head. Coric on top, 3 wins to Zverev's 1. And the most recent meeting came on grass courts in Halle, 2018. That was straightforward for Coric, 6-1, 6-4. They've also played at the US Open 2017, so quite a while back. I mean, they were both kind of coming through at that point, but it's been a while since then. They've definitely both developed since those days. Coric won that one in 4 sets, but 3 of those sets were extremely tight. He won it 3-6, 7-5, 7-6, 7-6. They played in Cincinnati just before that in 2015. Coric won that one in 3 sets. And the lone win that went Zverev's way was it in 2018 as well in Miami. So hard courts, quarterfinal. Zverev won 6-4, 6-4. So, I mean, Coric with the lead there. It's hard to take much away from the fact that he has the lead because a lot of their meetings have been really close and because the win that Zverev did get was on American hard courts and in straight sets. So I think that's kind of, looking at that head-to-head, if you were just basing your prediction off of that, I think it's pretty 50-50 for these two. I think a lot of people are taking Coric in this one. I've seen a few comments of people saying they'd go with Coric, and I do understand that because he's knocked off a couple of big names, or one more specifically in Stefanos Tsitsipas. He's really, I think, got a lot of bite in his forehand here in New York and is finding it that bit easier to finish. One thing I did notice in his match against Thompson, which was by a pretty comprehensive scoreline, is he was moving into the net a lot, which is not something that Coric has really been comfortable with throughout his career so far. He is a baseline rallier and he does it pretty well, but it's important for him at the moment to think about how he can finish the rallies off, particularly against someone like Zverev. And he was moving in, and credit to him for sticking with that and having the patience to keep going for it time and time again, even when, you know, it honestly, for a fair percentage of the time, it wasn't really going his way. It was probably getting in Thompson's head, which is a good thing to do, you know, keep focusing on it and keep doing it because it can just throw your opponent off. But his success rate wasn't phenomenal from moving forwards. And I just felt watching that if he was up against a more consistent opponent, he might be penalized for that. So that brings us to the question of whether Zverev can be that consistent opponent, because he's been a little bit unpredictable of late, Zverev. He's had obviously the trouble on serve, that pesky double fault that dogs his path. But he has looked pretty good so far. That Anderson win would have been good for his confidence. Obviously, he had his major breakthrough in January when he reached the semi-finals of the Australian Open, and that had really been a monkey on his back, you know, just having people questioning him, all these 5-set matches he was playing, when's he going to come through, etc. So I think he got a lot of the mental pressure out of his system in Australia. I think the way you can kind of, with the way I'm talking about this, I'm leaning Zverev, and I might kick myself for but I just think you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt here because he's been moving so well. I think that's something he's worked on the last year or so, his movement. He's a taller guy, so that's never going to come as easily, but he's keeping himself in the rallies. He's finding ways to finish. If he makes a good percentage of first serves and can hold Coric back there, he can really go for it in the return games and try and make a breakthrough. So as much as I think Coric is in great form, I think that, if Zverev can bring something close to his best, he should really have this one on his racket still and be able to utilize the conditions. So I am gonna take Zverev. I'm not sure how many sets. I think it will extend straight sets. I'm 4 or 5. I think let's go with, he hasn't had a 5-setter yet, and he always has a 5-setter. Alexander Zverev in 5 sets. And that one gets put to bed. Let's move on. We move on to the second women's match of today. Naomi Osaka, the number 4 seed, up against unseeded Shelby Rogers. But Rogers has had some great form of late. Her comeback story has been pretty brilliant. She had a really good back end of 2019. Let's start with sorry, by the way, that I'm kind of always looking down. If you've never watched these live preview and predictions before, I've got a lot of my stats and paths to this round on my laptop here, and it's just easier to have it next to me, so hopefully you can still hear. But Osaka, let's start with her path. She's dropped 2 sets, one in the first round to her countrywoman, Misaki Doi. She won that match 6-2, 5-7, 6-2. And then another in the third round up against Marta Kostyuk, who made a splash when she was in her mid-teens, making a run at the Australian Open, but has kind of been here and there since then. And Osaka eventually came through that one 6-3, 6-7, 6-2. If you were at the live Q&A yesterday, I did touch on that match a little bit. She also beat Camilla Giorgi 6-1, 6-2, and Annette Kontaveit 6-3, 6-4. Most recently, Kontaveit has been in good form and was seeded number 14. So, let's move on to Shelby Rogers before I make any further comments. Rogers, her best win so far came just now against, the other day, against Petra Kvitova, the number 6 seed in the 4th round. It was 7-6, 3-6, 7-6. She edged those tie breaks, and I think a lot of people will say that Kvitova kind of let that one go. I think she double faulted on one of the 4 match points that she had. So, I mean, with Kvitova, she's a lethal lefty. She hits with so much flat pace. In these kind of conditions, it's always going to be on her racket, and the key is hanging on to come through, which is what Rogers did. She hits a heavy ball, she's quite consistent, she can mix it up a bit as well. So credit to her for being able to come through that one after straight sets victories, which included a 7-5, 6-1 defeat of Elena Rybakina in the second round. Rybakina, the number 11 seed, and one of the most informed players, actually, at the beginning of this year. She really got going back end of 2019 and carried it into 2020. So decent run all round. Have these two played before? Yeah, they have, actually, because it's quite interesting, the head-to-head. 3-love to Shelby Rogers in this head-to-head. They haven't played in a few years, though. So, I mean, the first couple of meetings were at ITF events in Lexington and Osprey, so both of them in America. They were across hard courts and clay courts. Shelby Rogers has yet to drop a set against Osaka, and the most recent meeting came in 2017 in Charleston. Rogers won that one 6-4, 6-2. But the 2 most recent meetings have been on clay, and these are very different conditions here. So quarterfinals at the US Open is going to be a faster pace. It's going to be a very different occasion to the places where they've faced off so far. And what I have to say here is that Naomi Osaka, I think I said it in the previous video, is looking like the front runner for me here at the US Open. Obviously had an iffy opener, but in terms of Osaka, if she's mentally there, she's very tough to beat for anyone, even Serena Williams, because her movement is great. Her strike of the ball is sometimes unplayable when she's in position. She finds her marks from all areas of the court, and she's been hitting really strong here in New York City from what I've seen. I didn't think it was the best match from her against Kostyuk. I think actually that Kostyuk kind of had that on her racket in the 3rd set, and she had a number of break points to take the lead in the decider. Wasn't able to do that, and then her body language and her demeanor, her confidence just went like air out of a balloon. It was just gone, and Osaka was able to capitalize, and that's what the best players do. They wait for their opportunity, they spot it, and they capitalize, and that's what she did. So Rogers can kind of keep her rallying. She can try and frustrate her. The key is to land a lot of first serves and try and get on the front foot to move her out of position before she can get a hold in the rally or before she can hit an immediate winner. It's a big ask, I think, if Osaka brings her best level. So, I mean, I'm not writing Rogers off. I don't write anyone off, so it's a little bit pointless of me even saying that. But I would be taking Osaka for this one based on her recent form. And I think that I'd say Osaka in straight sets. So Naomi Osaka in straight sets on that occasion to get her first ever win over Shelby Rogers, I think. We never really know. Okay, last match of the first day of quarterfinals. Oh my days. Right, this match is the one that I've been going back and forth on. Yeah, it's this one's tough. I'm kind of still not fully sure which way I'm going, but we'll have a read through of the results and see what I come up with. So, Pablo Carreño Busta has had a little bit of a high profile at this event, not for the reasons he would have wanted. Obviously, it was he who was taking on Djokovic in the match where Djokovic was defaulted for hitting a lines person. That may never have happened if Djokovic had converted one of 3 set points that he had on the return at 4-5 in that set. He thought he'd won the set. Carreño Busta hit a huge forehand that literally clipped the baseline by a splinter of an inch. Djokovic must not have been able to believe that, but kept himself in it, went up 6-5, and that's when the incident happened. So good stuff from Carreño Busta. I feel like he's a guy that can... Did I even say what this match is? I don't know. I just roll. Pablo Carreño Busta, the number 20 seed, against number 12 seed Denis Shapovalov. That's the match we're talking about. I'm not sure if I even mentioned that, but I figure that a lot of people watching will already know the match anyway. So Carreño Busta, the lowest seed in this clash, and so far, apart from the match with Djokovic, he has been the man expected to come through. He played 3 non-seeders ahead of that match with Djokovic. And the closest he was pushed was in the first round where he went in 5 sets, probably just shook some rust off. I mean, we forget that these players are coming back after months of being set back. So got going in that first round and then it was pretty comprehensive in rounds 2 and 3. Third round, he beat Ricardo Svarankis 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. Shapovalov's had a little bit more of a trying journey if we're to leave Djokovic out of things. And he's had some really impressive results. What have I just done there? Okay. Every round, actually, he's beaten a notable name, in my opinion. So Sebastian Corder in round 1, unseeded, but a promising young player who's very much just at the beginning of starting to come through. Shapovalov won 6-4, 4-6, 6-3, 6-2. He hasn't had a straight sets win yet. He's had them all in 4 sets. So he's up against Sunwoo Kwon in round 2. Apologies if I butchered that pronunciation. I'm probably not the only one. I can't even say Shapovalov right. He tells me it's Shapovalov, but doesn't sound good in a British accent, so I'm not going to do it. 6-7, 6-4, 6-4, 6-2 for Shapovalov in round 2. And then up against Taylor Fritz. That was an interesting one. It was quite a seesaw tug-of-war back-and-forth match. Fritz likes to move in, uses the pace, so that was quite testing for Shapovalov, but he came through in 5 sets, coming from 2 sets to 1 down. So I think that was big for his mentality, moving into play or face or whatever. David Goffin, who was the number 7 seed, has obviously had some big wins over the past few years, reached the ATP Finals final in 2017, I'm pretty sure. Shapovalov won that one 6-7, 6-3, 6-4, 6-3, really showcasing his ability on the back foot, his movement, the way he can play when he's got a target at the net, but also his ability to mix things up as well. Great feel for the ball. I think all in all, he's made leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, Shapovalov, and we all know what he can do when his forehand is firing. He can really utilize these conditions, but as much as I think a lot of people will be putting Shapovalov through in this match, I don't think you can write Carreño Busta off that easily. He's a former semi-finalist here. He reached semis in 2017, and I feel like he's a player that doesn't get the respect that he deserves for the consistency that he's shown across the board, across the years. He's one of those players that I think people could write down as kind of a clay courter, particularly because he's from Spain and because he has that rallying consistency. But a lot of his better results have come on hard courts, and he can really utilize that. And I think he showed himself really solid and willing to go for it in the part of a set that he played against Djokovic. The thing is with Shapovalov, he brings a different look to what Djokovic would bring to the court. He's hitting a lot flatter, a lot more firepower. He'll be looking to move in, I would think, as well, quite quickly, maybe behind the serve, just to hold Carreño Busta back, because he'll know that the Spaniard himself will probably want to move in quite a lot. So it might be a little bit of a race to get to the forecourt in some respects. But they can also really test each other out at the baseline. So it's difficult. I've not seen enough of either player in this match, I don't think. And both of them have really valid reasons to call them to come through. I was going to call Carreño Busta on this one just because of his experience, and I thought he could really utilize that to his advantage. But at the same time, Shapovalov is looking so mentally sound at the moment, and he's talking about how he has developed that area of his game, which is so important to enable him to produce that quality that comes out on the practice court. When he's playing his A game, we've seen him take down Rafael Nadal in this part of the world and other top players. He can do this. Can he do it over best of 5 sets? Well, he's had some practice. He's been taken to 4 sets in every match so far. The head-to-head does stand at 3-1 in the favor of Pablo Carreño Busta. He's won the last 2 meetings, both in 2019, both on hard courts, 1 indoors, which would have been a fast pace, and 1 outdoors. Straight sets, also straight sets on the clay of Rome in Italy last year. Oh no, that was Shapovalov. Sorry, Shapovalov won the one on clay, and then they did play at the US Open in 2017, which was a tight one, but Carreño Busta got it 7-6, 7-6, 7-6. So looking at that head-to-head, I was even more kind of pushed towards calling Carreño Busta. But it's a question of whether I go on past results for Carreño Busta or current form for Shapovalov. And I feel like even though Shapovalov is the higher seeded player, he's probably more of a risky pick here. But then again, when Carreño Busta made that semi-final in 2017, I think he played 4 qualifiers leading up to the quarterfinals. So once again, he hadn't had the most testing draw to date. So it might be a little bit harsh of me to use that against him, but I think I will take Shapovalov on this occasion. Really going to regret that if I'm wrong. And I think I'm going to say Shapovalov in 5 because I can really see these two testing each other out. I've already predicted a 5-setter. Would we have 2 5-setters? Potentially. It's been quite a US Open for 5-set matches. So we'll see how that one goes. So that's day 1 wraps up, and we're just about to hit the half-hour mark. So I need to get going. Who's up next? I've got down Victoria Azarenka, unseeded, but almost a champion here in 2012, served for the win over Serena Williams, got broken and eventually lost that match. She's up against the number 16 seed Elise Mertens, who looked phenomenal against Sofia Kenin last night. So let's start with Mertens, actually. On her road to date, much like Jennifer Brady, she's been really dominant, has barely dropped. Well, she's not dropped a set at all. She's dropped handfuls of games in each matches. Laura Siegemund was her first round opponent. She won that one 6-2, 6-2. Siegemund, admittedly more of a clay quarter. That's where she thrives, but still a good dominant victory for Mertens. Another clay courser, really, and Sara Sorribes Tormo. She beat her 6-3, 7-5. 7-5, 6-1 over Katie McNally, who I think is a player to keep an eye on. She's got a lot of versatility. She likes to move in. She cites Ashley Barty, actually, as an inspiration for her game style. So when that's the case, they're going to be good. So that was 7-5, 6-1 in the 3rd round for Mertens. And then 6-3, 6-3 over Sofia Kenin, the number 2 seed. I think that shocked a few people. I wouldn't say I was shocked by it because peak Elise Mertens came to play. And the thing I find with Mertens is when she's peaking, she's going to be very difficult for anyone to beat because she hits so fluid. She nails the sidelines. She gets the angles. Her movement's really good. you just don't know whether she's going to bring that level. And in that match, Kenan's been so consistent, and you just couldn't bank on Mertens bringing that A game. But she did, and thus she rolled through 6-3, 6-3, kind of exposing the lack of firepower for Kenin. She's a really smart player, but she had no answer to the power coming from Mertens' racket. So she was also close to tears, I think, partway through the second set, Kenin, because she just could not see a way through. It was a pretty hopeless evening for her. And we move on to Azarenka, unseeded but obviously champion last week in Cincy. Should have played Naomi Osaka in the final, but Osaka pulled out injured, so that was a shame. That would have been a great match to see really where she was at up against that really high level, but she had proved herself moving into that match, so there's no doubt that she deserved the title. Here at the US, she hadn't dropped a match. Clearly, she hadn't dropped a set in wins over Barbara Haas, Arina Sabalenka, her countrywoman in the number 5 seed, and Iga Swiatek, and she literally dropped a minimal amount of games. Coming into her 4th round match with Karolina Muchova from the Czech Republic, seeded number 20. Muchova started to get some really good wins over the past year or so. She beat Karolina Pliskova in a marathon match at Wimbledon, where she really showed how she can frustrate the players like Azarenka, actually, who are big power players, and use the full length of the court to get them moving. And she's got quite difficult shots to contend with because she's very consistent, and then there's almost this weird side spin on some of her backhands that makes it difficult to control. She uses timing incredibly well to generate her pace. And Azarenka really struggled with that early on. She was fighting, but Muchova did edge out the first set 7-5, despite having been broken back as she served for it the first time. Azarenka, though, great problem solving from her, 6-1, 6-4 in the last 2 sets. I'll touch on that a little bit more when I've run through they've never played, these two. Duh, I did check this before. Azarenka and Mertens facing off for the first time, which adds an even more interesting dimension to this one. And it might just come down to the mentality and who can hold it together better on the day. And as I mentioned that, I've got to talk about Azarenka in that department, because we all know what a rotten few years she has had, with things happening off the court that have left her unsettled on the court. That's really displayed itself. And it was getting to the point where these trials were going on for so long where you did wonder if she would ever get back to her form of old. But as within a tennis match, 1 or 2 points can turn things around. Within the wider context of a season, 1 or 2 matches can turn things around. And she really got going in Cincy, New York, which is still Cincinnati, and has carried that in here. I think the most impressive thing about her last 2 wins over Swiatek and Muchova has been her problem solving, and the way she hasn't let the fact that these two have been whacking winners for periods of the match get on top of her, frustrate her. She's hung really tough. She's also completely backed herself. Every time either of those 2 players put a second serve in play, she was up on top of the baseline or inside the baseline to drill a return. We talk a lot about the serving. Azarenka, for me, one of the best, if not the best, returners we have at the tournament at the moment. I think that's a place in her game where she's really stepped up and utilized that and got herself out of some tough situations in that regard. Her serving's been decent as well, but on the return, even on first serve return, she's getting a good amount of depth on those returns, which is easing her into the rally and getting herself at least in a neutral position in those exchanges. And she's a worker. She's a grafter. She's really fighting to turn these points and matches around. And I had a lot of confidence in her. I'm going to say, after that first set against Muchova, I'd outright picked Azarenka to come through that match. And I thought, have I been terribly, terribly wrong here? But she proved that it's all about the mentality with her and her ability to keep backing herself and believing herself even when it's not all going her way on the court. So I think, given that, even though Mertens produced stunning form last night, it is tough to bet against Azarenka at the moment. So if Swiatek couldn't take the racket out of her hands with the pace and winners that she was generating, it might be a tough time for Mertens to do the same, because Azarenka's already had that test with Swiatek. How can she handle the firepower? Can she find ways to come through? It's a question of whether she can get in Mertens' head here. And I'm going to give her the benefit and say that she should be able to. So I'm going to say Azarenka in this one. I'll actually take her in straight sets as well. Just can't bank on Mertens replicating that form from last night, even though she hasn't dropped a set yet and has dropped a minimal number of games. I would be willing to back Azarenka for the upset here, and I think I'd say could be two really tight sets. It could be a close match. I'm actually leaning towards 3 sets now, but I'm going to say Azarenka in straight sets for that one. So we move on to a really interesting clash. Daniil Medvedev, the number 3 seed, up against number 10 seed Andrei Rublev. Both of these two were stunning yesterday. So good. Great to watch, and something has to give. Let's start with the lower ranked. Let's start with Rublev, who was he was considered a rising star for a while, and then he went off the scene. I think he had troubles with injuries as well. And then back end of last year, boom, just came through, had a fantastic victory over Federer around this time a year ago, where he just thrashed him and took the racket and the match out of his hands. And he's been looking pretty decent here and has only dropped 1 set, which was against Matteo Berrettini last night. Berrettini obviously was a semi-finalist here last year. Huge serve and forehand, so you can't underestimate how well Rublev had to play to get across the line. So starting with round 1 though, it was Jeremy Chardy in the first round. Very experienced veteran, not an easy opener, but he got that one 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. 2 more straight sets victories followed. The most dominant of all, 3rd round against Caruso, 6-love, 6-4, 6-love. Just brutal from Rublev. I did watch part of that match, actually. He was getting on top of the ball early, taking it on the rise, getting into the net, just frustrating Caruso with his inability to miss as well. It really got down on the Italian. And then he delivered disappointment to another Italian in Berrettini. He came from a set down to do it, 4-6, 6-3, 6-3, 6-3. Unplayable at times at the back end of that match because his serve was firing. He was quickly moving in behind it, so there were a lot of serve and volleys. There were a lot of 1-2 punches that, even if they didn't end in a winner, they forced the error or they put him in a really good position to finish off quickly from the forecourt. It was deeply impressive from Rublev at the back end. He was drilling the lines, he was getting the depth on his shots, and Berrettini, I think, was kind of taken away with that. The pace just kind of got on top of him. And the one thing that had been working for Berrettini was the backhand slice and just chopping away, making Rublev play until he had the error. Because with the slice as well, if you hit the slice well and if you hit it with depth, there's some nasty spin that can be on that, and it makes it difficult for a player like Rublev to get a clean hit on the ball and to be able to control and to be able to dictate, which is what he wanted to do. He wanted to finish the points off quickly. So when Berrettini was doing deep slice after deep slice, finding the corners with it as well, he was drawing a lot of errors, but because of the way Rublev was playing, he didn't quite have the patience and the consistency to go about that as much as he did in the first set to get that lead. So it was disappointment in the end for Berrettini, but on his way to going out, I think he did showcase to Medvedev that there is a way to get through this form from Rublev. At the end of the day, he kind of let him play the way he did at the back end. It was terrific from Rublev, like seriously good form, but Berrettini did kind of help open the door a little bit for that, in my opinion. So let's have a look at Medvedev. He's been unstoppable so far. He hasn't faced a seeded opponent, but that doesn't do justice, I don't think, to the string of players that he's come through. So Federico Del Bonai in the first round, that Del Bonai is a player that has been around for some time. 6-1, 6-2, 6-4 for Medvedev. Chris O'Connell next, it was 6-3, 6-2, 6-4. Looked pretty convincing there. He just looks really comfortable, Medvedev. You've got to remember, he was a finalist here last year. He played one of the best matches I've ever seen against Rafael Nadal. He was 2 sets and a breakdown. Looked on the brink of going out quite straightforwardly, and then redlined to make it a seriously good contest and was nailing his marks, moving up the court, getting everything back in play. And really causing Nadal issues. Nadal had to completely change his game style in that last set to find a way through. But before I wax lyrical on that one, we move on to his third round against JJ Wolf, he was a star on the challenger scene prior to lockdown. He was racking up wins like nobody's business. So much firepower and energy that he brings to the court. But Medvedev really did test that with his sheer consistency, and Wolf actually got quite frustrated, I think, early on. You saw him trying to force it a little bit to finish things off more quickly, and Medvedev got the win 6-3, 6-3, 6-2, and then just slaughtered poor Francis Tiafoe yesterday. Medvedev 6-4, 6-1, 6-love. Tiafoe as well isn't the kind of player that wants to get on top of the points early and finish things off. So he was kind of forced out of his comfort zone a little bit there by Medvedev's sheer depth and consistency, because towards the back end, he was just looking all over the shop for options. He was trying to move in, he was trying to finish things more quickly, and he was hitting unforced errors as a result. It was a really tough match for him, and you had to feel for him because he's had a decent tournament, Tiafoe. He's steadily moving along, but Medvedev just took all his options away in that match. And it can be difficult to see how Medvedev does this, because at first glance, there doesn't seem to be anything particularly special. But for a tall guy, he moves incredibly well. He covers the baseline really well. A few strides and he's in position to hit forehands or backhands. His shots are pretty flat and heavy. They're very quick as well, so he uses the conditions here. And it's quite rare to see a player hit so cleanly while remaining so consistent. He doesn't look like he's going to tire, Medvedev. He can do it all day long. So he did look pretty scary, I think, after that match. So as well as Rublev played, it's going to be a tough matchup for him, this one. They have faced off twice before. Both times Medvedev came out on top. It was 6-2, 6-3 in Cincinnati last year, and 6-4, 7-5 in St. Petersburg, Russia, so Rublev's home country. Quarterfinals, end of last year, Medvedev winning both matches in straight sets, and both of them on hard courts. So that does set him up well for this match. I feel like I've been a little bit unfair in the way that I've previewed this, because I've kind of gone into detail of how, Berrettini could have thrown Rublev off and wasn't quite able to do it. And maybe that takes away a bit from the sheer quality that we saw from Rublev last night. But I just think that Medvedev has those tools in his game. He can use the backhand slice, he can rally consistently and get the depth of shot that will stop Rublev getting on top and moving in, which is what he likes to do. So I do think that Medvedev has the tools to frustrate Rublev here. The key for Rublev, therefore, will be getting those first serves in, finishing off the points quickly on his service game so that he's under less pressure up against the Medvedev serve. So he really needs to focus on that for this one. But all in all, I can't really back against Medvedev at the moment with the form he's in. So all credit to Rublev if he comes through. I think if he brings that level from against Berrettini, then he's got a great shot here. But Medvedev is looking fantastic. So I'm going to say Medvedev. I want to say 4 or 5 sets just because Rublev's been playing so well. I'm tempted to go 4. Do I say straights or 4? I'm going to say, do you know what? I've got to back myself here. I'm going to say Daniil Medvedev in straight sets for this match. Sorry, Rublev. Prove me wrong then. Okay, we've got 2 more. Serena Williams up against Svetlana Pironkova. Throwback. It's not a Thursday, is it? It's a Tuesday. Throwback Tuesday. Because we saw this one a few times back in the day. Rolling back box, but I don't want to go sounding too cliche, so let's get going. Pironkova, spoke about her a little bit on the video yesterday. If you were around, in the description for this video, so you can go and check that one out if you're really that bored. Let's start with Pironkova. Not only unseeded, but unranked coming into this, because she was off on maternity leave. I think she's come back under a protected ranking because of maternity leave. So she technically ended her career in 2017 when she had a child, but then she was looking to come back pre-lockdown and has really got going since, and brought some serious form into this US Open. Beat Lyudmila Samsonova, Gabini Muguruza, and Donna Vekic for the loss of minimal games in the opening 3 rounds. Obviously, Muguruza and Vekic were seeded 10 and 18, and she beat those two 7-5, 6-3, and 6-4, 6-1. So after that, I thought, right, better get a look at this girl. And I did watch a large proportion of her match against Elise Cornet, which Pironkova won 6-4, 6-7, 6-3. And I have to say, I wasn't as impressed by her as I was expecting to be. And I'm quite sad to say that. But she should have had that one in straight sets, and she just lost the consistency. And here's the thing with Pironkova, because she hits, as I've said with a few players, she hits quite a flat ball. She can get good pace on it, but if she's not got the control on it, it quite easily floats beyond the baseline or doesn't go over the net. There were periods in that match against Cornet where she was really struggling in the forecourt because she didn't have the height on her ground strokes to both get the ball over the net and also keep it within the confines of the court. So there were some moments there where I think a player less frustrated and tired than Cornet could have exposed her, and that player might be Serena Williams. I feel like that was really harsh analysis, but I'm just basing that on what I saw from the match. So Serena has dropped a couple of sets, which is the new norm. She has been finding it pretty tough. I think recent Cincy was not convincing from her at all, but I think she's changed it around a little bit in New York City. So 7-5, 6-3 over Christiane in the first round, and then 6-2, 6-4 over Margarita Gasparian. Now, that was a pretty good win. Gasparian has got the one-handed backhand. She hits a deep, heavy shot. She's caused top players all kinds of trouble on big stages. She really played Angelique Kerber incredibly well at Wimbledon a couple of years back. I think 2 years back, maybe last year. Lose track. But she's a strong player, so that's a good win for Serena. And then I did touch on this in the last video, her win over Sloane Stephens, former champion, 2017 champion, number 26 seed, 2-6, 6-2, 6-2 over Stephens for Serena, who is the number 3 seed here, thanks to some absences. Serena, I think mentally proved herself there, because the mentality has been an issue for her at these majors as she goes for the dreaded number 24. So that has held her back a little bit, but Stephens was a player who has a lot of confidence coming into these kinds of matches. She's played Serena before. She's beaten her before at a slam. She knew what she had to do. She was rallying hard, took the 6-2 opener pretty swiftly and pretty convincingly. And from there, Serena just composed herself, moved her feet a little bit more, got her movement going, and was really able to get on top of that match and win that 1-2, 6-2, 6-2. So after that, Serena hadn't been the front runner for me coming into this tournament. And usually she's right up there for me because of all that she's achieved, and because when she's playing well, the match is always on a racket, pretty much. Like 99.9% of the time, if she brings her A game, it's going to be her that decides the outcome. I hadn't seen that from her so much recently, but it was kind of it was a throwback victory for me, that win over Stephens, and it had me a lot more convinced of her ability at this tournament. People might have said the same thing about the match against Maria Sakkari. That put a little seed of doubt in my mind again, just because she should have had that in straights, and she kind of almost let it go herself. So she was striking incredibly well in that match, Serena. Her backhand down the line was unstoppable for the first set. It was a 6-3, 6-7, 6-3 win for Serena. And that 6-3 opening set, she bossed it. I mean, Sakkari's playing well. She beat Serena at the Western and Southern Open a couple of weeks ago in these conditions. And she did come out into that match backing herself, but even as she went toe-to-toe, Serena was winning a lot of the longer rallies, which I thought was a massive boost for Serena, because it said a lot about her staying power, her consistency, and her ability to still find ways to finish the point on her own terms after long exchanges. I thought that was a massive boost. Headed into the second set, I thought this is going to be a great win for her. Fire's going to be under her feet. She's going to really back herself in this tournament. And then back end of the second set, she was really struggling to put Sakkari away, because Sakkari was so dogged, so consistent, was serving well, and Serena just wasn't quite able to get across the line. She let that frustration get to her. It was kind of evident at the back end of the second, followed her into the tiebreak where she went down a deficit and eventually wasn't able to drag herself out. So in a way, impressive for Serena that she could mentally regroup and find a way to come through that one. At the same time, there were flashes that she could still be in a little bit of trouble. So I wouldn't write Serena down for the title just yet. She's definitely up there as a lead contender. But Pironkova is a player that could cause her trouble because she's not hitting the ball in a similar way, really, to Stevens and Sakkari. I think that the Stevens match was a good preparation for Serena going into the Sakkari match. I think they hit the ball in a similar way. But Pironkova isn't going to feed her as much kind of heavy pace. I don't think she's going to place the ball as nicely for Serena, and that might wind Serena up a little bit. But Serena, I believe, does have a stranglehold on the head-to-head. She does. Obviously, they haven't played for a few years. The first meeting was way back in 2007. I do remember 2007, though, quite well, even though I was quite young. So 5-7, 6-1, 6-1 for Serena on the clay of Roland Garros. 2011 Eastbourne was an interesting one because that was when Serena was just coming back from having been set out by the blood clots that actually nearly ended her life. That was, if not her first match back, that was one of her very first matches back after about a year out. And Serena won that one 1-6, 6-3, 6-4. On a grass court, and we know that Pironkova has achieved her best slam results at Wimbledon. She's beaten Venus Williams there twice, so she likes the fast pace. So that was big that Serena was able to get that win in the bag. 2014 Beijing, they faced off on hard courts, also on hard courts at the real Cincinnati in 2015. Serena won both those matches in straight sets. So really, what I'm saying here is Pironkova's done incredibly well. She should be so proud of those opening results and her mental resolve as well to come through against Cornet in what was honestly quite a messy clash. But if Serena brings 80% of her best, she's winning this match. So I'm going to give Serena the win here. I think could go 3 quite easily with her recent results and her recent kind of demeanor during matches. But I think I'll give it to her in straights based on what I've seen from Pironkova. I think I'll say Serena in straight sets for that one, which brings us down to the final match. I'm so happy that I've actually almost got through this. Oh, I hate making predictions, apart from when I've actually done really thorough analysis and I know where I'm going. Okay, Dominic Thiem, the number 2 seed, up against number 21 seed Alex de Minaur, who is looking good here in New York City. Both of them actually bring great form into this match, and I think it could be a really fascinating clash. So let's start with de Minaur, who is, seeded 21. He has dropped, I think, 3 sets so far, and he's faced quite tough opposition all the way along. So he won his first round in straights. Then he faced Richard Gasquet in the second round. Gasquet, who's obviously been top 10, who's often been one of the top seeds at this kind of event. de Minaur coming through 6-4, 6-3, 6-7, 7-5. I did watch parts of that match. Obviously, the second round actually feels like weeks ago, so I don't remember too much about it. I remember his movement was really good. He was able to get on top of the Gasquet second serves. What happened in that match? I feel like there was something quite significant that happened in it, but I can't fully recall. I should have checked on this. But anyway, de Minaur came through. I think there were some really tight moments actually at the back end that he was able to edge mentally. I did notes on that third set tiebreak all the way through. I charted every single point and I can't remember what happened. Okay, Gasquet was up 6-2. Gasquet was up 6-2, I think, in the tiebreak. And de Minaur pulled it back. And then Gasquet edged it, I think. I think that's what happens, and good from de Minaur that he could recover from losing such a tight set and finish off in 4. Rambling. We know I'm getting tired when that happens. Okay, number 11 seed, Karen Kashenov. He beat in the third round. That was 5 sets, and he came from 2 sets to 1 down, because after winning the first set, Kashenov kind of rolled through the second, 6-love. And then got the third 6-4. So de Minaur kind of took a seesaw one there, 6-3, 6-1 in the final 2 sets. And then he played Vasek Pospisil, 7-6, 6-3, 6-2. He came through. I think for de Minaur, we all know what he's very good at doing. His movement is second to none. Well, maybe second to Monfils, potentially, but he has wheels. Like, he covers not just the baseline, but the entirety of the court. So it's very difficult to see a way to actually finish him off. Your best bet is to try and get him deep in the court and maybe drop shot him, or just stretch him right out with the serve and find a way to finish off quickly with a 1-2. But he's very difficult to put away, is de Minaur, and he's playing a guy who you could say the same thing about at the moment, Dominic Thiem, who hung really tough in his first set against Felix Auger-Aliassime and then ran with it. So it was a retirement victory for Thiem in the first round. I watched part of that one against Jamie Munar. Not the easiest opener, really. Munar, another rising star. 7-6, 6-3 for Thiem. No, maybe this was the tiebreak I'm thinking of, actually, where I think Thiem had the advantage. Munar came back, and then Thiem was just able to edge it. Yeah, I completely mixed this up. Okay, so this was the tiebreak on, I think, the very first or second, the second day of the US Open. Thiem had the advantage in the tiebreak. I think this was the one where he was 6-2 up on Munar, and then Munar came back and really tested Thiem's mentality to come through. I mean, it was 2 sets to love up when Munar retired, so that was pretty much a win in the bag for him, and he got himself going. Sumit Nagal in the second round, 6-3, 6-3, 6-2 for Thiem, and then I think the statement victory for him was the third round, where he beat former champion Marin Cilic. Seeded number 31, but we know the damage that backhand can cause on these courts. Thiem saw him off 6-2, 6-2, 3-6, 6-2, 6-3 even. I didn't think it was too concerning that Thiem dropped a set there, purely because of the quality that Cilic can bring to these courts, and because of Cilic's performances at Grand Slams in recent years. It's easy to forget that in 2018 he reached 2 Grand Slam finals and pushed Roger Federer hard in that Australian Open final. So Cilic is no pushover, particularly not here, but Thiem got it done without needing the 5-setter. So big from him, and even bigger in the fourth round against the number 15 seed Felix Auger-Aliassime, who'd been getting a lot of hype. I'm not sure if I'd call it overhype, but because obviously he's got a great game, he's got a lot of potential, and he's clearly going places. But Thiem was definitely the biggest challenge for him so far. He had faced Andy Murray in round 2, and he'd got that one done in straight sets, so that was big from him and big to back it up. But Thiem's consistency was on another level. The amount of balls that he was able to make him play in the first set, and the more I watch Thiem, the more I'm seeing him adopt kind of Nadal-like tendencies. The position that he returns from, and I think I did mention this in the last video, him and Nadal get so much stick for returning so far back in the court that their back is pretty much up against the backboard, but it works. Like, why are people criticizing them when it works? They get so much time on the ball, they're able to get a deep return, they're able to quickly get into the point. Now, that is something that de Minaur could actually try and expose. If he could hold Thiem back and get the placement on to finish off quite quickly, he can use timing to generate some great pace, de Minaur, so it's something to think about. But all in all, you know, the way that Thiem's playing his forehand as well, the off forehand with the rallying consistency, setting himself up for the finishing shots, I think that he's looking, along with Medvedev, I'd say those two are the most impressive players at the tournament at the moment. And for me, they're the 2 leading contenders, which will make it incredibly interesting if they were to face off in, I think they would face off in the semis, which is a shame. That would be a great final, but one heck of a semi as well. So, let's see the head-to-heads between Thiem and de Minaur. 2 love in Thiem's favour. Both matches coming on, one on hard courts and one on clay. So they did face off here at the US Open 2017. Straightforward for Thiem, 6-4, 6-1, 6-1. But I don't think it's fair to take too much away from that, because de Minaur didn't really break out on tour until the beginning of 2018. The potential was very much there in 2017, but he hadn't had that mental breakthrough, and he hadn't developed as much as he has now. So I mean, yeah, straightforward for Thiem in these kind of conditions, but I don't think you can just write de Minaur off on that basis. And then 2018 in Austria on clay, Thiem won in 4 sets, 6-4, 6-2, 3-6, 6-4. So I think de Minaur has the potential to cause some trouble here. Like I said, if he can use the timing, he can take Thiem's pace, and he can use that to his advantage with his court coverage as well. Positioning is not really an issue for him because he's so quick to get himself into position. It's just a case of who can get on the front foot and who can rally them more consistently and who can find ways to finish off. And what Thiem showed in his final sets against Auger-Aliassime is that he's mentally tough, he's ready to edge the big moments, and he's ready to start swinging when he's done that. So he was in supreme form at the back end of that match. Thiem, he finished off with forehand and backhand winners that just scorched the lines and looks very much a leading contender here. What I would say is that when Thiem was swinging and looking like so dominant, a lot of the pressure had come off because he'd edged through the key moments, and I think Auger-Aliassime felt that a bit. I don't think he was too impressed with his own level at the back end of that match, and I don't expect de Minaur to drop off as easily, so he is going to test Thiem out, but with the form that Thiem's in, it would be wrong of me not to pick him to come through this. I think he's very much a strong contender for this title, although it's a very open field right now. I'm going to say Thiem to come through. Let's maybe give de Minaur a set. I think let's say Thiem in 4, Dominic Thiem in 4 sets to come through. And I'm so thankful that the Wi-Fi hasn't dropped. We're doing pretty well this week. I expect to have at least one day where it didn't work out, but so far so good. Hopefully it continues. Thank you everyone who's tuned in live. If you're coming at a later date, drop a note in the comments and let me know what you think of my predictions and what your own predictions are for this round of matches. And hopefully, if the predictions go horrendously wrong, we'll have a better run in the semi-finals. But if I don't get a single one right, I might have to quit my job. So we'll see how it goes. As I said, if it all goes so wrong, just remember it's 2020 and nothing goes right this year. So thank you very much for tuning in. I will be back at some point to preview and predict the semi-finals and also the finals. So stick around. And don't worry, at some point this video will have processed, so if you didn't get to catch this live, it will be up at some point for you to watch back. That's on YouTube, so hurry up with it, YouTube, please. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.